Recent lockdowns during the COVID-19 pandemic have restricted various aspects of our daily lives. And Dr. Micah Zuhl from the Central Michigan University recently investigated the impact of these restrictions on the mental health of university students. Micah, it's great to have you with us today. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Alistair. This is a wonderful platform. I do appreciate you reaching out and giving myself the opportunity to talk about our some of our work that we're doing. So thank you.
Thanks. Also asking questions will be Dr. Marlies from the University of Toronto. Micah, can you first shed some light on the mechanisms as to why sitting time was associated with both depression and anxiety? And how would physical activity act in the brain to alleviate this negative impact on mental health?
I think data suggests that individuals sit a lot. I think in the US, Canada, the UK, the average sitting time is, 9 to, I think, up to 12 or so hours per day. So people are sitting, quite a bit. In our data, I think the students were sitting on average about a little over 8.5 hours per day. And sitting time was the only variable that was linked to both depression and anxiety. Even more so than physical activity. So people who met activity guidelines, both moderate and vigorous activity guidelines, still wasn't as strongly associated with depression and anxiety as simply sitting time was. And each hour of sitting time was, linked to or predicted, higher levels of depression and anxiety. I think the mechanism is difficult, and it's likely like a multifactorial reasoning, but, during lockdowns that, students, may not have the resources or the knowledge or the coping abilities to sustain physical activity. And I think therefore decide to sit more, maybe sleep more. I think some studies have explained that more people who watch TV or use computers are more sedentary, therefore leading to increased risk for mental health problems, which I think is what happened during the, some of the more severe COVID restrictions and lockdowns that were occurring. I do think the mechanistic data is challenging and probably lacking a bit. And I do also think that, and I think we'll visit on this later on, but I think we'd be remiss to think that, the depression, the anxiety is happening before the sedentary behavior is occurring, or maybe the reasoning why people are becoming more sedentary. But for us, the depression and anxiety scores were lower among people who were more active. And so I think mechanistically, exercise promotes growth factors in the brain that are linked to cognitive functioning, such as processing speed, memory, executive functioning. So that may be one aspect of it. I think another one is exercise has mood enhancing benefits. So these mood improvements don't wear off, meaning that every session of exercise that one participates in has the same benefit in terms of improving mood state.
Hi, Micah. Great to speak with you. I would just like to ask about if you'd be able to comment on the impact of lockdowns and isolation on non-university students and other populations a little bit. So when I was going through your paper, I couldn't help but think about older folks that are especially vulnerable to COVID and the impact of lockdown.
Yeah.
From that angle, like, are you able to comment a little bit on that as well?
Yeah, sure. And Matt, I read you're a protein guy too, aren't you? Yeah, you've done some of that cool intermittent fasting work and stuff with the famous Canadian muscle researchers, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's great stuff. So I think COVID, I think COVID created a lot of stress related to health, financial, social uncertainties, and isolation lockdowns, I think posed, many ill effects. And I think researchers are continuing to report high rates of depression and anxiety among children, adults, especially during the lockdown measures. And in fact, I think from our data set in a different paper, we reported higher levels of alcohol use, which was linked to depression during the lockdowns. And I think those who remain in isolation, such as probably the individuals you're thinking of, those who are immunocompromised or vulnerable groups, are at even, I think, heightened risk for experiencing depression. I think promoting activity is a simple means, though. I think we can improve mental health by encouraging folks to be active. Even a minimal amount of activity, 10 minutes a day, has been shown to lower levels of depression. So I think encouraging activity should be considered, but I think we also need to educate individuals about, how to become more active. And I don't think it doesn't have to be excessive. I think just minimal amounts of it seems to have tremendous benefit.
Thanks a lot. And I wondered if there are any particular exercise training strategies or regimes, like tools and other things that could be used to help address this issue in university students, and perhaps even more broadly.
Yeah, I think, obviously there's technology that people have access to, and I think simple things like step counts. I know, physical activity researchers, talk a lot about trying to achieve certain step count numbers or values in a certain day. I think small goals like, say, 5,000 steps in a day is a reasonable goal. And I think, there's so many various pedometer technologies out there, apps and such, that people can use. There's so many simple things like standing, for example, just standing and transitioning from sitting to standing. Both of these, very simple movements increase energy expenditure. I think for us, we're trying to develop interventions to promote physical activity with university students who are sedentary. And I think what's surprising to me is that so many young people just don't know how to be active. You think it would be like somewhat common sense, but they just don't have the knowledge of how to be active, how to develop an exercise program. And we're trying to educate them on how to be active, how to meet physical activity guidelines and goals, with the hope that they develop these behaviors that then, will extend into later life. So we're trying to work on teaching, it's kind of funny teaching students, but teaching them how to be active. It sounds very simple, but to me, it's really surprising that it's I'm fairly new to the physical activity researching realm. So, these are some of the things that have really kind of opened my eyes.
Thanks a lot. And as you alluded to in your manuscript about reverse causality playing a role in that, lockdowns reduce physical activity behavior, and that might then have influenced mental health. From that perspective, would you expect things to normalize as we emerge from COVID, hopefully, with a reduction in levels of depression and anxiety? And do you see physical activity as being the major cause of that?
Yeah, I think that's, it seems to me, and I don't know about where you all are, but at least in the US, we're starting to see some of the restrictions being lifted. And, I think that as people are returning back to, social activities and physical activities, I think we're starting to actually see the changes in individuals. I know in our students, we're finally returning back to face-to-face instruction. And you're seeing it with the student. Matt, I don't know if you do much teaching at all, but for myself, just seeing the students in the classroom, they're more engaged. There's a social aspect there that's been missing the last 2 years. And so I think just that aspect, the social piece, and I think that will tend to lead to more, my hope is more physical activity. But I think some of the things that are happening across industry, for example, I think I saw today Peloton, for example, is reducing their workforce because of slow sales. Sales are slowing down. And they cited that people are returning back to the gym, or they may not be using the device. There may be some trends that are happening that are shifting, back towards maybe people doing things that they did prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that from my own environment. There's a real appetite to get back into in-person settings, and obviously gyms are reopening and all those other environments. So yeah, I can certainly relate to what you're saying. Thanks a lot, Micah.
Yeah, I think people are also, people who would engage in, say, like the weekend competitions, the triathlons and the whatever various races and runs, those things are starting to now resume. And so people are back out doing their, their different training regimes and doing those activities now. So I think those all are positive behaviors, hopefully, that we can continue, right? Without, too many more setbacks.
Micah and Matt, many thanks for joining this discussion today. And let me wish you all the very best with your further work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.